It was in late 81, sometime in late December. I remember it being a few days before Christmas. The really heavy snows had come early that year, and a deep blanket of the white stuff had covered Nome since before Halloween. I'd moved up the previous spring after graduating high school, with plans to get a degree in mining technology from the local university. Didn't work out, best laid plans of mice and men and all that jazz. I'd washed out in the first quarter of school and found myself working as the graveyard DJ at K-Nome, town's sole AM radio station. I didn't mind the graveyard shift, although everyone else avoided it like the plague. To me, it was kind of nice. All I had to do was play records all night, and this was back in the days of vinyl, log everything in the book, do the station IDs every few hours as mandated by the FCC. Easy pay. Low pay, granted, but very, very easy. Although K-Nome was the oldest Catholic-based station in the country, the programming was decidedly different at night. During the day, the station broadcasted with 25,000 watts, but at night, we'd cut the transmitter down to about 5,000 watts as per the FCC. Not that anyone minded. I don't think any of the town's 2,300 inhabitants at the time stayed up past midnight. Those who did apparently didn't listen to the radio, not AM radio anyway. Thus, I had free rein to play whatever I wanted to play. I like to think that somewhere in a Siberian outpost, my audience was a bunch of confused Russian soldiers, drunk out of their minds on cheap vodka, wondering what type of lunatic was doing the musical programming on KNOM. On this particular night, as was a habit of mine, I'd lowered the studio lights, tossed a couple more logs in the wood stove, and then queued up Inagata de Vida by Iron Butterfly on the turntable. Now, I wasn't an Iron Butterfly fan by any stretch of the imagination, but the song took up the whole side of a vinyl LP, giving me time to catnap a bit. I was just starting to doze off when I heard a rapping at the front door, softly at first, and then a little more urgently. I flipped on the lights and shot the bolt, half expecting an unannounced visit from my boss, but was instead greeted with an elderly Inuit woman, bundled up head to toe against the bitter cold. She didn't speak a word, but her dark eyes looked past me into the studio, and I understood that she was just looking for a place to warm up for a bit. That was fine with me. I was always happy to see company, even if they didn't speak English. I stepped back, let her in, and locked the door behind us. She glided over to a worn love seat in the station's tiny reception area and began unwrapping the mounds of blankets she had wound around her. Shortly, I was surprised to see that she also had a baby bundled in there with her, an infant from the looks of it, not more than a few months old. She refused my hand-gestured offers of food or drink and seemed content to warm herself and the infant by the stove. I lowered the lights again, this time queuing up Jethro Tull's Aqualung album, good for just over 43 minutes if you counted both sides, and proceeded to doze off. Sometime later, I was jolted awake by an icy blast of wind, and I assumed that the ancient woman had left. As my eyes groggily focused, I saw that, indeed, she was gone, but that the quietly sleeping infant was still on the couch. I leapt up and headed for the door, let her know that she'd forgotten the baby. Much to my surprise, the door was still bolted from the inside. I flung the door open anyway, not really thinking about how she might have accomplished locking the door without a key. I was met with a good 12 inches of undisturbed snow that had drifted against the door. There were no footprints. Searching the station and studios from top to bottom, I could find no trace that the woman had ever been there, save for the baby napping in a pile of blankets. I shrugged, ran the station IDs, filled out the logs, and continued playing more records, somewhat perplexed. When the sun finally began to rise and the woman still hadn't returned, I started to worry a bit. At the tail end of the morning news and weather report, I casually announced that if anyone was missing a baby in the greater Nome metropolitan area, we had one in the K-Nome studios. Jokingly, I added that if it wasn't claimed by noon, the daytime DJ would give it away during the afternoon Tell It and Sell It show, where locals called in looking to buy, sell, or barter items. Within 5 minutes, there was a loud pounding at the studio door. I opened it up, expecting to see the old woman, but instead was met with the smallest and cutest Alaskan state trooper that I'd ever seen. Always was a sucker for a woman in uniform. Come on in.
I've come concerning your announcement about the baby.
Well, I don't know. There was an old woman that was at the door. I let her in. She unwrapped the blankets. There was a baby in there with her. I dozed off, and when I woke up, she was just gone. The baby was still here, and the door was still locked from the inside. I haven't a clue.
Over in the Inuit settlement, clear on the other side of town. One of the women was found this morning by her neighbors. She's sick with some kind of flu or other. When they found her, she was delirious, dehydrated, and already suffering from hypothermia. Seems that during the night, the fire had gone out in her wood stove. She's damn near frozen to death by the time her neighbors noticed the lack of smoke from her stovepipe. She kept asking over and over about her baby, which was nowhere to be found.
Well, I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of missing babies this morning in Nome, so that must be the right one. She agreed, scooped up the baby, and left. Afterwards, I was just finishing my shift, had already clocked out, signed off my logs, and was getting ready to turn over the controls to the daytime DJ when the trooper returned.
Hello again. I have a few questions I'd like to ask you.
I obliged, told the story of the old woman again and how she'd somehow left without me seeing her or knowing how she'd accomplished such a feat.
Can I see your station logs, please?
Sure, here, take a look.
I did notice your truck out there hadn't been moved overnight. There's snow drifted up to the door handles.
So, what's the story? Is the woman going to be okay?
Well, she'll survive. She's in hospital. But the baby would have died in that icy hutment with no fire.
And the old lady? Did you find out about her? She nodded and reached in her shirt pocket, pulled out a faded black and white photo and passed it to me silently. That's her. I'm certain that's the old lady who brought the baby in here.
Turn it over.
I flipped the photo over, and on the back it bore an inscription in faded pencil. Anna Anansiak, 1888, 1973. I looked at her cluelessly.
It's Inuit. It means grandmother.
But the dates. She didn't say a word, but merely nodded her head. I felt all the color drain out of my face. What about the baby?
The baby? She's going to be fine. She's with relatives until they can get the mama back to health.
That's good.
And by the way, her name, the baby, is Kama. It's short for Kama Nartok. It's Inuit for miracle. Are you okay?
I'm shaken up. I don't know about you, but I could use a drink. How about it?
Sure, my shift ends in half an hour. I'll be back.
With shaking hands, I closed the door behind her, thought about what had just happened. Common Nartok. Miracle. I reckon she was. I looked at the clock and hoped I could wait 30 minutes for that drink.